Welcome back. I'm Matt Collins of the Mainspring Group. Glad to have you. We are now in our third week talking about the Mainspring Pulse, and we're looking at yet another example of the dashboards that's available to our users in the Pulse. And so the approach, this is a quick reminder, is we're taking a look at what questions the dashboard can answer for you. That's a key feature of our overall approach to dashboards, is that they're designed specifically to answer they answer the questions that you're asking or should be asking. And then we're going to talk about how you would potentially answer that given the setup today, and then how the Mainspring Pulse answers that question for you. And then we'll wrap up with some potential actions that you could take as a result of the information on the dashboard. So first, the question for today is, what will our cash position be 60 days from today? It's an easy question, but it's a complicated process to get the answer to. Now, the typical way that you would do this is, obviously, I need to know my starting cash. And so you would pull your current cash from your balance sheet and get an understanding, all right, where are we sitting today? And then you really need to take into consideration, for over the next 60 days, what changes in my cash will occur. And so you would need to pull your open AP and understand everything that's already expected to go out between now and the next 60 days. By the weekly check runs. And you would then need to also understand what is anything that's still open that will hit AP, and then maybe some expenses after that. So the reality is there's no straightforward way to do this. And so the best way, again, it's how you would do it, the way that I would do it, is I would probably go to export data to Excel and start grabbing some tables to get information. And so the tables that you would have to get to, these may not even be comprehensive, but a list of them. You would need to schedule details table, schedule house details, because that gives you what you're expected to, what schedule activities are expected to wrap up in the next 60 days. And then you would then need to take the schedule activities and cost codes reference table off of schedule activities to know which cost codes are represented by the schedule activities. And then you would need to pull any open POs and our open work orders. And if you spend time in the tables, you know that that's probably like 5 different tables that are all represented there to get an understanding of the values of my open POs and open work orders. And then you would also need to take the vendor master and then the terms master, 2 different tables, to understand what is if a PO is more complete today, how much time until the cash leaves based on the vendor terms. And then you would have to do some work with the GL budgets to understand what are my expenses expectations over the next 60 days. Once you get all those tables, you put them into maybe one Excel or 10 different Excel sheets, and you start do some real fun, fun for me, fun formula work. And then you apologize to the boss that it's taking you a little too long, and you get the answer. You finally get the answer. Boss, 60 days from now, we're going to have this amount of money available. Well, the final step here is the 6th, which is next time you got to do the exact same process all over again, because the moment you pull that report, all of those tables are stale or they're expired. So that's a lot, but it's a very necessary question to ask or to answer. Excuse me. How does it done in the Pulse? You simply click on the dashboard. I'm going to go over a few different key features of the cash flow projection dashboard. And the first is that it forecasts, and this is the obvious main point, is that it forecasts the cash position based on your current cash. And then it makes those adjustments that we described, but it does it automatically. And it looks at, okay, which cash in, what events are going to occur, cash at closing or cash from draws, and then the subtractions, when cash leaves the organization, and it needs to take in vendor payments into account, anything on the AP table, the GL expenses, and it is able to say by week, your cash change on a weekly basis from now through your entire production schedule, 6 months out, is going to be these amounts. So if we start with today's cash on hand and the adjustments on a weekly basis, we can tell you that 60 days from now, you're going to have this amount of money in the account. So that's the key feature, is the forecasting mechanism that uses the 2 cash ins and then 3 cash outs. The second key feature is that, again, we answer the question and then we give you drill downs. In this dashboard, you can drill down all the way into all of the information that is being rolled up into the summary. You can look and see a breakdown into exactly which cash ins are coming. You can take a look and see precisely which GLs are represented in our expenses, or which GL costs are budgeted to occur. So you can drill down into the GL level. And now it's on the roll up. It shows you at the high level, but it allows those drill downs. And I mentioned in the third key feature is this function that allows you to understand the cash at closing from our sales. But there are times where we want to know our cash at closing, obviously, if a home is sold. But what about our specs? Is it a little too optimistic to assume that we're going to sell every spec when we can and then get that cash at closing? Probably a little too optimistic, not uncommon for home builders, but maybe you shouldn't go that optimistic. But also, does it make sense, if you're a company that builds and relies on specs, does it also make sense in your future cash position to exclude all specs simply because they don't have a buyer? We say we let you choose. So you can click the button that just simply says include all specs. Now, be aware of what's happening is it's not making any adjustments to the draws, or it's not making any adjustments to the expenses associated with those spec items. It's simply the cash at closing. And if you don't want to assume all, then we allow you to specifically select which specs you want included in that. So you can get as reasonable and as accurate of a prediction that you want based off your understanding of where your spec markets are. That's several of the key features here. Now let's talk about the potential actions that could come. Everything about these dashboards is to first answer your questions so that you can make a decision, so then you can take action. Well, the decisions around cash flow are some of the most critical for the organization. And so we allow you to make informed decisions and then to make informed decisions and then take the action. So the first is simply that we tell you, and we can tell you how much cash that you would need. If the projections show that the cash flow is lower than anticipated, you're able to address those concerns weeks and months in advance of them happening by seeing what gets us to that point and make the changes necessary leading up to that, so you never actually drop below. If there's like a threshold, like we don't want to go below this line in our cash position, you have the ability to see 2, 3, 4, 5 months out if you ever dip below that, so that you can make the changes now to prevent that dip from actually occurring. And another potential action is that you can make general ledger level decisions about the future expenses because of those drill down capabilities. It looks at the budgets, and if you see, ultimately if our cash position goes lower than we want to, or maybe we can take expenses because it's higher than we need it to be, but you can make those GL level decisions by looking at where the future position is and be able to take action now, again, preparing for the future. So there's obviously a handful more different actions that you could take around it. Those are just a couple. So really grateful for you spending this time with us. Next week, we're going to be looking into the warranty and open warranty requests, which will be a good conversation as well. Really glad you could be here with us. We'll see you next week.